Hi friends, want to replace potatoes? Here are some of the healthiest roasted vegetables and how you can prepare them. First we will roast them and then I'll make a vegetable bisque. Number one is the Kabocha Squash, which is technically a fruit, but people eat it like a vegetable. This Peruvian squash has a creamy carbohydrate texture like a potato, but not the glycemic index. A potato has a glycemic index ranging from 59 to 111 depending on how you prepare it. Baking or roasting will increase its glycemic index, while boiling it in water can lower it by 30 points to 82. So if you want to lose some weight, eat boiled potatoes. Kabocha squash, on the other hand, has a glycemic index that's even lower, 68. So this is one reason why I don't mind roasting vegetables. It's also full of nutrients like beta-carotene that give its deep orange color to help with your immunity, skin, and vision. Let me warn you though, it's really difficult to cut even with my cleaver. So I actually don't even bother to cut it anymore until it has softened first. And here's how I do it. I basically use a fork to stab it all around, and then I cover it on the top and bottom with a large bowl. So I'm going to take this and stick it in the microwave for about 10 minutes covered, depending on the size of the squash. When it's ready, it will be soft enough for the fork to poke through. If you need more time, add it in 3-minute intervals. Then when it's done, be very careful because there's going to be a lot of steam inside, which can burn your hand. So this squash is done. See how soft it is when I stab it with my fork? It goes right through. But be careful and don't try to lift it with the fork after you've microwaved it or you're gonna make a mess like I did. I was trying to move it on the cutting board without touching it because it was still very hot. Now inside the squash is somewhat hollow, but it has seeds like a pumpkin. Now the seeds are not cooked, so they're way too hard to eat. Now if you don't like the microwave, you can always use a pressure cooker or you can steam it on the stovetop. They just take a longer time. And by the way, all cooking methods will lose some nutrients, but microwaving tends to preserve nutrients better than boiling, sauteing, baking, roasting, and definitely deep frying or grilling. Now, keep in mind, if you don't thoroughly poke holes all around the squash evenly, it may explode in the microwave because steam will build up. So now I'm going to slice it in half so that you can see the seeds. And you can use the side of the fork or a spoon to scrape the seeds out. And at this point, this squash is edible as is. If you find a good kabocha squash, this is delicious. And I just eat it straight from the microwave. And you can eat all of it, including the skin, which has the most amount of phytonutrients and fiber. Now you can add this to your soup, to your stir fry, to your curry, or you can just chop it up and add it to your salad. This is by far my favorite squash to eat because it is so creamy and sweet. But the added bonus is that yellow-orange pigment, which is made out of phytonutrients called carotenoids, and there are several which can be converted to vitamin A. Vitamin A is an essential fat-soluble vitamin for your brain, for your immune system, and for cellular growth. Now, the fastest growing cell in your body is your immune cell called the neutrophil, which can turn over in hours. And this is why we can measure how fast your body is responding to treatment when you have an infection. So every time you eat yellow and orange pigmented foods, you're actually helping your immunity. Now, oxidation is another word that is important to learn. Oxidation is why and how our body ages. Unfortunately, this is very normal. But oxidation will wear and tear your systems. And unless you supply it with proper fuel, your systems aren't going to be able to repair itself. It's like having a car without gasoline. That car won't take you anywhere without the fuel. So beta-carotene is one of your immune system's fuels. It's an antioxidant that powers and drives these detoxification systems. The most delicate tissue that can be destroyed by oxidation are fatty tissue. And the most important fatty tissue is your brain. Your brain is a collection of fat that protects your neurons. Carotenoids, they protect that fat and prevents your brain from basically browning. Now, fat, be it cooking oil or potato chip or your beef steak or your brain, are all very easily oxidized. And when you eat carotenoids, you're actually helping out your strongest detoxification system. That's called the glutathione redox system. Now, I speak about this pathway a lot because as you age, it gets less efficient and your health, your memory, they will both struggle when your system is low. And what's happening is that toxins are building up. It's like sewage and then that sewage kind of seeps into wrong tissue. Imagine your waste management truck only taking half of your trash. I'm sure you would be quite upset. I used to live in Washington for a while, and our recycling person wouldn't take my recyclables if I didn't have it the right size or the right kind. That actually made me quite frustrated, as every week I would put out the recyclables, but at the end of the day, he wouldn't take any, and he would make us cut up the boxes before he put it in the truck. So needless to say, recycling trash kept building up faster in my house. Your glutathione redox system detoxifies the trash that your body collects. And if you don't take care of it, toxins will build up in your body. And people with higher blood levels of carotenoids, they have lower risk of heart disease, improved triglyceride cholesterol, and men also have improved blood sugars and smaller waists. By the way, did you know that the treatment of childhood measles is IV vitamin A? That's how powerful carotenoids are. Number 2 is the Okinawa longevity vegetable, the purple sweet potato, which is not related to the common white baking potato. The white potato is a nightshade root from the family Solanaceae. They come in yellow, red, purple, or brown skins, but they're all oval in shape like a ball, and it's white inside. Whereas the sweet potato is from the morning glory family, Convolvulaceae. On the outside, they can have white, red, purple, or brown skins, and they usually have pointed tips, but on the inside, they are brilliant in color and are generally shades of orange or purple. Now, if you're worried about your blood sugars, the sweet potato actually won't raise your blood sugars as high as eating white potatoes. This is despite the fact that it tastes sweeter. And this is because the sweet potato has twice as much fiber. Fiber is essentially calorie-less, and I would argue it's probably a negative calorie ingredient because it takes your body energy to digest it. However, if you really wanted to even lower its effect on your blood sugar, make this roasted dish in advance. Refrigerate it overnight before you eat it. This starts a process called retrogradation, where the starch in the sweet potato turns into indigestible carbohydrates or resistant starch. The cold chemically changes the starch so that it reduces the high sugar spikes by 30 to 40%. That's pretty good. So the sweet potato may taste sweeter, but it's actually better for people with diabetes, without diabetes, who have prediabetes, or people who just simply want to reduce their weight, inflammation, insulin levels, and sugar spikes. Now, I always go for the darkest pigments. These roots have antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-carcinogenic, hepatoprotective, anti-aging immune supporting ingredients. In other words, colored sweet potatoes can help combat toxins, inflammation, cancer, aging, improve hepatitis, gut, and immune health. Now, of course, depending on how you cook them, they may be less healthy. So if you're adding inflammatory ingredients like sugar, oils, butter, lard, cheese, you may cancel out the benefits and may even make them toxic. And this is why I stopped eating sweet potato chips. There may be no salt, but there is surely a ton of oil. Now, I'm just going to chop up these sweet potatoes into segments with the skin on. The skin has some of the most concentrated fibers and anthocyanins on this plant. So I am always trying to eat the skins, except for the white potato. So I won't eat any of the different colored white potato nightshade family skin. There is a unique toxin in the nightshade white potato called glycoalkaloid. So I usually will peel off the skin, especially the potatoes that are greenish or sprouting. They have more toxins. Most of the toxin is concentrated on the skin, and this is a neurotoxin. Now, you may have eaten it all your life and never realized that your tummy ache or irritable bowel syndrome or that funny feeling you may get on your tongue may just be from the potato toxins. Now, unfortunately, they are not destroyed by heat. Even deep frying them won't destroy the glycoalkaloids. And in the UK, they actually warn people not to overbuy potatoes and to store them in a cool, dark place so that they don't make more toxins. Now, this is opposite for sweet potatoes, which have incredibly healthy skins to eat. Now, after I cut these sweet potatoes, if I want to reduce my roasting time, then I'll just microwave them for about 3 minutes so it starts a cooking process inside. Now, number 3 are more beta-carotene rich roots, carrots. Now, you can get the really long carrots or save yourself some cutting time and get the baby carrots. Believe it or not, I used to hate carrots because sometimes, the raw carrots, they get stuck in my throat, or pieces actually have gone up in my nose if I don't pay attention to chewing them and swallowing properly. However, I have learned to eat more of them, and I just pay attention to my chewing because I can't emphasize how people just need to eat more colorful plants because I see so many people with poor skin conditions, from dry, peeling, chapped skin to acne to various shades of eczema and allergies. And this can all be signs of vitamin A deficiency. When you're low in vitamin A, it's not just your skin that will be affected. Besides dry skin, you can have leaky gut, you can have diarrhea, chronic coughing, dry eyes, cataracts, and kidney stones. And this can all happen when you just don't have an adequate amount of vitamin A for your body. However, you got to be careful. Megadosing vitamin A is not a good idea. Accutane for the treatment of acne is really a form of vitamin A that's megadose, and it's great for the skin, but it can have toxic side effects, and that includes causing cancers and being unsafe in pregnancy. So please be cautious whenever you take excess levels of vitamin A, which is a fat-soluble vitamin, and that can build up in your body. But when you eat whole plants rich in beta-carotenes, you don't have to worry about getting toxic levels because your body regulates that. Carrots are so versatile. You can eat them raw, in a dip like hummus, or roast them, bake them, put them in soups. But I really fell in love with them because they are the perfect companion to hummus. Number 4 is my favorite root to eat daily, and that's the onion because it has high levels of quercetin, which really I think should be a vitamin. This is a powerful antioxidant that is also a senolytic and increases the lifespan of old mice, equivalent to making them live 15 more human years beyond their normal lifespan. Now, we're not mice, but something like that is hard to prove in people. Quercetin has been shown to improve the lung function of people, though, with a deadly inflammatory disease called idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis in just 3 weeks. Do you know which food has the most quercetin? Onions. So 12 weeks of eating onions daily have been shown to help people reduce their body weight, their blood pressure, and improve their cognitive tests and brain imaging. Onions, however, are really tricky to chop. And I usually prefer to eat the red onions, but my kids like the brown onions, which are generally sweeter. So this is a brown onion, which I have already peeled to reveal the white color inside. Now, first thing that I do is chop the tail off and I leave the top stem. Then it's important to put it flat so that it doesn't roll. Now, if it rolls, that can be a knife accident. And hand lacerations, that's not so good. But this onion had a defect, so I'm going to take that off first with a knife. And I always make sure I aim the knife away from my fingers. After that, I'm going to chop them in large pieces since this will be roasted. Now, my friend was having trouble chopping onions because every time she chopped them, the essential oils would make her tear up. Well, I asked her if she had any swimming goggles, and she put them on, and that helped her tremendously. And if you don't have swimming goggles, just blow a fan, blow it away from your face so that the onion essential oils kind of float away from you. So these are delicious and sweet when you cook it. And my sister-in-law taught me that if you toast the onions, it brings out the sweetness before you put it in soups. Now, did you know that onions are also an ancient plant eaten for over 5,000 years? Ancient Egypt offered onions to their gods and buried onions with their pharaohs as a symbol of eternity. And King Ramses IV, who died in 1160 BC, he was entombed with onions in his eye sockets. Onions are also mentioned in the Bible in Numbers 11:5. Now, in India, onions were used as a diuretic. And in Greece, Olympic athletes consumed pounds of onions as well as onion juice. And they even rubbed onions on their bodies. Maybe they were trying to blind their competition with their scent. Onions are so important that the Pilgrims brought them on the Mayflower. Today, people are actually studying onions and their effect against cancer, metabolism like diabetes, or reducing inflammation in conditions like asthma. I actually just like the taste of it. Number 5 is the sunchoke, a North American root that has a crisp of a radish when eaten raw, but when you cook it, it turns more to a potato texture. It's actually a rich source of iron, potassium, and a prebiotic. So I had pre-washed these sunchokes, and I'm just going to chop it up. The skin is actually edible too. Number 6 is a Japanese root vegetable called Nagaimo. Now, you can eat this raw or cooked. When fully cooked, it has the texture of a taro, but when it's raw, it's crunchy like an radish or an Asian pear. Now, it's a rich source of potassium too. It's really tricky to prepare though because it's so slimy. So it's advised that people should prepare this with a pair of gloves, and you have to peel the skin off. It's actually a mountainous yam, but it doesn't have the texture of a yam. The texture is more like a Asian pear. So I basically peeled this yam with a regular peeler, but once I had exposed the flesh, That's where the sap or the skin comes out. It does, however, disappear when you cook it. So the way I prevented it from slipping through my hand was I would anchor it against the bowl and then just aim the peeler away from my fingers. So I just coarsely chopped it and put it in the baking tray along with my other vegetables. Now, number 7 is another root that people actually eat as an herb, except for my family. We eat this like a vegetable, and that's garlic. So whenever I'm going to use the oven, I try to roast some extra garlic, and I basically keep the peel on and I'll pour a little bit of oil. This is about 2 cloves that I pulled apart. Now, I overdid it on the oil because I was going to add vegetables to this tray. Now, if you keep the cloves in the shell, they don't burn as easily, and they come off soft and even spreadable. Did you know that ticks don't like the scent of garlic? And in fact, they tested it on people, and people who ate garlic, well, they had 20% less tick bites. Now, I'm going to combine these vegetables and season it with some of my kids' favorite spices. I'm using basically oregano, Italian seasoning with extra rosemary. And you can season it with salt and pepper to taste as well. I generally don't like to add salt to my food. Now, at this stage, if you want your vegetables brown, then don't crowd your vegetables and put them in the oven for about 425 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 to 45 minutes. That actually promotes the formation of acrylamides, which are believed to cause gene mutations. And when you mutate your genes, then you increase your risk of cancers and the development of nervous and reproductive system problems. Basically, the higher you cook, the more acrylamide there is on your food. So grilling, broiling, and deep frying, they are the worst methods of cooking because not only are you losing nutrients, but you're actually making toxic compounds. Even toasting your bread causes acrylamide to accumulate. So if you toast it for 3 minutes instead of 5 minutes, you can significantly reduce acrylamide on your bread. So this is why I prefer to crowd my vegetables and cover them up so that they kind of steam in the oven. And I bake them at a lower temperature, which is about 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which means it's going to take longer to bake, and hence I pre-microwave some of it, as well as I cover it up to speed it up. Now, my son says that I'm not really roasting the food because it doesn't turn brown. Well, it still saves me time because when I bake, I basically can do something else. So it takes me less than 15 minutes to prepare the vegetables. And then when I put them in the oven, I just walk away until they're done. So my vegetables, they look like this when they're done. And at this point, you can eat it as is, or you can make it into a bisque. Now, even though all these vegetables have a lower glycemic index than white potatoes, they are still a rich source of starch. So if you want to lower your blood sugars, then putting them in the refrigerator and eating them the next day can help. But boiling these vegetables would be best. So putting them into a soup would be a good way to eat them. Eating lower calorie foods, such as leafy greens, before you eat these vegetables will also help to buffer the rapid absorption of carbohydrates. You can also add spices such as ginger, cayenne pepper, and black cumin that can also help in your metabolism. And don't forget vinegar. Vinegar or acidic acid activates an enzyme called AMP kinase to reduce blood sugar levels as well as insulin spikes. And just a tablespoon can begin dropping your triglycerides within an hour of eating it and improve your cholesterol over time. But what's even more powerful than vinegar is movement. Just moving in the room, walking actually in a circle around after I eat for a few minutes tremendously helps me lower my blood sugars. So when the roasted vegetables are done, I take out the garlic and I peel them, and then I can put them back with the roasted vegetables to serve them, or I can save them for another dish. Now, these roasted vegetables really should be a side dish. And sometimes I just take some of this and I add it to my green salads. Now, you can actually transform this dish into a soup by putting it in a pot with some vegetable broth and then your peeled garlic. Now, with that, I added dried chili that I had pre-soaked. So you can either blend them or you can eat them like this. So now I'm going to blend these ingredients with my hand blender, and then I'm going to add some spices. Now, this is Chinese anise seed. I'm just going to put 1. I'm also going to add some ground ginger because I like to add ginger to everything. It's very anti-inflammatory and it helps with digestion. It's probably about a tablespoon. Now, I love onions. It adds a more sweet taste. I probably just threw in only about a teaspoon because I'm running low. Usually I'll put a tablespoon in a pot this size. Now, this spice is turmeric, and I just put it in because it's anti-inflammatory. I add turmeric to almost all my food, and that's probably a teaspoon. And now I'm going to throw in some dried prunes for a little bit more sweetness. Now, to make this a better quality food, I'm going to add some black beans. so that I'm adding protein to this soup. And these were just black beans I had cooked last time and I froze it. And to the soup, I'm also going to add nutritional yeast to give it more B vitamins like vitamin B12, as well as beta-glucans that are great for my immune system. People who consume more nutritional yeast, they have higher salivary IgA antibody levels. However, people who have Crohn's colitis or hidradenitis suppurativa should really be avoiding all yeast products. Now to this soup, I'm going to add some wheat germ, flaxseed, and hemp seed to give it even more protein, as well as omega-3 fats and spermidine. Then I'll mix it all up and let it simmer over the stove for about 10 minutes. So remember, everything is already cooked, so I'm just trying to let the flavors emulsify together. And if you need some salt, try adding some miso paste to taste. So let's tally the amount of protein that was in the roasted vegetables compared to the hearty bisque. Notice that they are really low protein foods. These are also low fat foods. So predominantly, when you're eating root, you're eating starch. And that goes for squashes as well. The sunchoke actually had the most amount of protein, but it's actually the least popular root in America, despite it being a Native American plant. And when you eat potatoes, you're also only getting about a gram of protein too. If you're worried about raising your blood sugars after you eat starches, then the key is to help your pancreas, your liver, and your muscles to work optimally. And the best way to do this is to help yourself become more insulin sensitive. When your blood sugar spikes, your body simply can't store much sugar. So excess sugar is really stored as fat, unless you're working it off. And remember, excess is not counted by 24 hours. Excess is in real time. And if within that hour you aren't using that sugar, it is getting converted to fat. And this is a natural and adaptive response to nature. Sugary foods prepare animals for times of famine. Think about a bear and how it binges on blueberries and salmon right before winter with the food famine. And how do they stock up for winter when they just hibernate? How do you achieve this? Well, by reducing body fat and increasing your own muscle. So there are 3 ways to achieve insulin sensitivity. Number 1 is movement. Every time you move, you increase your muscle size and you're making yourself more insulin sensitive. Even shaking your leg and feet as you watch this YouTube video improves your insulin sensitivity. But moving small muscle groups, like moving my pinky finger, is better than nothing, but that's not going to be as powerful as flexing my arms. And what's even more powerful is moving my legs, as they are the largest muscle groups on my body. So the more you move, the more calories you burn, and eventually that will shrink the metabolic fat inside your abdomen called the visceral fat. That's congesting your liver and pancreas and contributing to insulin resistance. Now, number 2 is avoiding fat, which is the most calorie-dense food. This isn't necessarily because it is more calorie-dense. However, that doesn't help, as it is easy to overeat calorie-dense foods. The reason why eating fat can sabotage your carbohydrate metabolism is because when you eat fat, your body doesn't burn your own fat. There are 2 types of fuel your body uses, carbohydrates and fat. Carbohydrates are actually preferred as they give the body quick energy. And that's why athletes, they load up on carbs before a competition. Fat is the energy savings account reserved for when the sugar is gone. This is why you have body fat in case we go through a Great Depression again. It is like carrying cash in your wallet versus keeping money in the bank. At the checkout, carbohydrate is the energy currency that you can use immediately. But fat is inconvenient to use, and you have to withdraw it from a fat bank, which takes time. So just like money, you have to actively deposit and save fat to have fat to use later on. And your body is really good at saving all your excess calories, and all of them get converted to fat. And there are different types of fats. Trans fats, which are man-made and toxic. Everybody should avoid those. Saturated fats, which are naturally found and concentrated in animals and animal products like dairy. Unsaturated fats and omega-6 oils found in plants, as well as purified oils, and omega-3 oils found in particular nuts and seeds and in marine life. But when you eat excess fats, they act as signaling molecules to tell your body you have an energy surplus, and as a result, you don't need to save any more sugar and you don't need to burn your own storage fat. This means that when you eat fat, you will burn the fat that you're eating instead of burning the fat that is causing the insulin resistance. So when people eat more fat, they don't lose their own body fat. And this has been known for over 100 years, as this was how type 1 diabetes was treated before insulin was invented. Now, at the same time, saturated fat, they also easily get into your liver and your muscles, and they're toxic to those cells. And we know this because when we infuse fatty acids, sometimes people's liver enzymes, they skyrocket, telling us that the liver is damaged. Scientists have also infused saturated fats and have shown that it can marbleize human muscle. Now, this is not good. This means that the person is getting more insulin resistant. So if you're eating marbleized meats, that cow has insulin resistance. Saturated fat can also directly inhibit the pancreas, inhibiting it from secreting insulin, which leads to lower insulin. And this is why people who eat a high-fat, low-carbohydrate, or ketogenic diet, they become more insulin resistant. But they won't know this until they go back to eating carbohydrates. And as soon as they do, they will notice a huge spike in their blood sugar. And this is why I keep my oils low in the roasted vegetables. But if you roast your vegetables with saturated fats like butter, I know they taste good. Maybe try to use half butter, half olive oil or avocado oil so that the butter is just used as a slight flavoring. And over time, you can reduce the amount of butter even more. The other thing to do is just to reduce the frequency of which you're eating fat. Maybe skip it for a meal and then skip it for a day. Metabolic changes actually can happen immediately, and you can see this difference in just a few days. In 1927, this study proved that a high-fat diet can cause insulin resistance in just 2 days and improve insulin sensitivity in 2 days. So those who ate basically oil, cream, and butter could not metabolize sugar. And those that were given sugar could metabolize sugar more efficiently. Now this makes sense, as you need the equipment to metabolize these nutrients. So if you train your body to digest fat, your body will conserve the equipment to digest sugar. This is called fat adaptive. It's like going to a mechanic that is really efficient at changing your tires, because that's all they do is change tires. But if you take your car for a tire change to a body shop that only replaces windows, well, they may know how to change your tires, but they're not going to have the equipment, the spare tires, so you'll probably have to wait a long time so that they can get those tires to change your tires. So this is why when you train your body to eat carbohydrates, it remembers how to do it, and it's going to do it more efficiently to get rid of the sugar from your blood. So the goal is to have normal blood sugars when you eat carbohydrates, then you have to get your body to be more efficient at processing carbohydrates. And you do this by avoiding added fats in your food. There are fats that are mono and polyunsaturated. They are better quality. But when you eat saturated fats, it does clog up the pancreas and muscles, which contributes to insulin resistance and poor carbohydrate metabolism. But you can't overdo the mono or polyunsaturated fat either. Now notice how eating protein also makes you more insulin resistant. And this is why it's resistant not to overeat protein. You do need protein. A diet that doesn't have protein is not nutritious and will have health problems, as protein is the scaffolding of your entire body. But the thing is, when you overeat protein, you actually can't store it. Whatever you don't use is saved as fat. Now, if you choose to eat carbohydrates, it's really important not to eat junky carbohydrates. Poor quality carbohydrates that lack fiber, even though it can help you maintain your insulin sensitivity, has been proven to increase your mortality as it contributes to cardiovascular disease. And this was proven when people with type 1 diabetes were given a high, low quality carbohydrate diet and low fat diet. They kept their insulin requirements down, but they died of heart attacks. So chasing lab values does not necessarily mean improvements in health. But these root vegetables that we make today are good quality carbohydrates because they're packed with fibers and phytonutrients, including essential minerals and vitamins. But they do not meet the minimum requirement of protein. And that's why I added protein-rich plants such as black beans, hemp seeds, flax seeds, and nutritional yeast. But if you want other options of quality protein, watch the next video.